be mother city. Some among the cutting symbol is the lineage was some of them. Among the Jumor is the Sinan water told on it. Rinpoche and the among the Jumor is the Amakatin symbol, Amakatin over the Amakatin, the Jivakari or some of them who is home. Now,
so she dele.
Oh, she did.
She didn't push her.
She don't go the way.
And that's so. Go dog. That's so. Okay. So, happy Mother's Day, everyone. It's a day where we have to remember the kindness of our mothers, and our mother is really extremely kind, because of the 6 realms of samsara, she's given us this human body. And so it really comes from our mother, and so we have to remember her kindness, and then we also have to think about what's the result of remembering that kindness. So.
Also say Amade that word to Sasa, Ranga Luchi of Amade, say Amade, teach Putina. You think I don't know. The market for the Tia, Pokemon at the one you're there. The Tiwashi was the report to your or the Ticola Samota, she says, Amantica Dincho, the drone to the our Carincho. The little Nanto, Damga Amadeca, the little young Theoret, something. Amacadichi, I'm saying the Theor. Take a ditch or this something that so Tina, the little, but then there are they are the Tato Sanjoma, they are at the top of your age. The Tondaja among nature careta, Namcares, Centomani, the Centomani, the Namcanadri, Jigit work at the Roma Abdumas or the Bacasa, the Markiva, China. Yogiti Roma, Roma Yoto, the Dromacabima, the Somali, the Chatang Dona, the Lita, Magi Yontina, the legendary Sama, the uncle to worry, the Tupulatin, the Dromacatulatine, the Code, Devata Domanganeta, Hakotopore.
And there's the outer mother outwardly, and the mother is the one who gives us the body, who gives birth to the different kinds of beings among the 6 classes of beings. And if you just think of this one, of this mother, what quality arises by just doing that, thinking of this one mother who gave us this body. So a mother loves her child, and the child has a great affection for the mother. And this is where real love begins. So the mother is very kind to her child out of her love. And animals have that too. Those animal mothers are also very kind to their children. And then on the ultimate level, what's the ultimate mother? It is love itself. And it's the love within the mother's mind. So the mother's kindness, when we speak about the mother's kindness is the love within her mind. So if you remember that love, and you hold that love in your mind, then you will attain temporary happiness in this life, and also this love will ultimately lead to enlightenment. And so then, what is the true ultimate mother? It is the empty mind, which is like space. And Jigten Sumgön says in the 7 verses of supplication to Tara, goddess, the unborn goddess of mindfulness dwells within the Dharmadhatu mother. So everything through that, it is this wisdom mother of mindfulness. Everything can be understood, karma, and everything else is understood if we just have that mother within us. If we only have this, then we can understand the nature of samsara, of happiness and of suffering. So, that's all.
That's all. The reason is that Martiva maybe children say Amadi Namkaris on Honde Tamsi in Yokong, so that Chuluk the Pinnacle, Tamilachi Daguna, Flather the Hortamsi, Jayakan Gomu, Jayakong, Namkada Gongo, Namkara Gongo. 3 lang same dinner, also same did, same the Tamari, same the day. Cordegas same the same day, and water took some joy. Jean chocolate in the water took some. Oh, I'm the same thing we need. I'm a lady. The same we need in a church. My charmy by my chiva me by chewing so Vietnam curry. The little Muneton, Damgoso, and the perhaps. Jepti drama, Jenche, maybe Namkara, your age. Namka, that is Namaka Pagan, said Chujako, put the top taking Amai, Chujako, Jokan Pasta word. Long Jatong, that was any, Tigani, or later was our Joksing, Tajili, Trapately, longer to the ta, so not totally, Rankately, was only Jatong that way, but. Longer Jatong, so the little chin butter, Teva never sent you about it. The Tapalahi was the little Tapala, Idi Kaka, Ima, Dajini Kaka, Kode Kaka Mari, Dajini Kaka Mari, Kani Kaka Mari, See Kwan Kaka Mari, Ben a Che, Tom Martin, Jane Jalo, Jane Omar, G the Kakari mother. Jet Kaka married, most of them saved the Kaka married, then they were cheaper. So they so married.
And so the unborn Dharmadhatu mother, she dwells within the unborn Dharmadhatu and is the source of samsara and nirvana. So in the Dharma, when we practice, for example, a deity, and we visualize the deity and the mandala, the celestial palace in space. So that is what we visualize outward in space. And then we look inward into the mind itself. And so we visualize with our mind in space, but it's really looking inward into the mind itself. And all beings possess a mind, and that mind is the root of samsara. It is the source of the 6 kinds of sentient beings. Through 6 conditions, there arise the 6 realms of samsara. But the true nature of the mind is unborn and undying. It is never born, never dies. And that is the ultimate mother, the ultimate source that is beyond birth and death. And so that is here in this application of Tara, we are supplicating really on the ultimate level, the Tara within us, our space-like nature that is continuously present. So outwardly, there's this appearance of the various deities. So there is different levels of kayas that manifest. There's a Dharma kaya mother, and the Dharma kaya mother is like space itself, and that is the source of all of samsara nirvana. So it's like sky, space itself. And then the Sambhoga kaya is like a rainbow appearing in the sky. Those whose karma is pure, they perceive the Sambhoga kaya forms appearing in various ways. And the way they appear is not in solid form, but in light forms like rainbows, and possessing the qualities of wisdom, love, and power. And so that is the pure deity. We call it Sambhoga Kaya. The pure deity, we call it the Sambhoga Kaya. And it is pure because there is no dualistic thought in the deity's mind. In their mind, there is no separation between self and other. There is no division between samsara and nirvana. So there is no dualistic thought. And so how is there no difference between self and other in their mind? It's because they have seen that there is no separate minds. It is just like the mind is just like the ultimate mind is just like pure water. And then that water in different vessel encounters different conditions. In one vessel, you may pour some tea to the water, and then in another vessel, you add some milk to it. So the condition is different. So it temporarily makes it appear different, but then the source ultimately is not different. It is the same. Let's go.
Pena tapi chirok yun tada, o chirok dere chutamya to mani re tina, o chirok daji ni to, nga chirok, ku chirok sewa, nangwa sakya gelo da zi shamsa mangwo zi chong, deke teri, nol nyoma mangta song, yegubi nero de dap song song, zi chik te sungo ge, chunta zimba tabje rangi ba, sengun le tere, sen zangma tere, chunta yo ma re te, chunta te ta rangi, napto o yakwa re te, 좀 따라 뛰니 차당 요구를 차당 똑바망보 오 취양 닭바이네 저거 나양 닭바이 저거 고양 닭바이 고양마다 바래 대상네들이 들이들 좀 따탐시 쪼바당 성서 쪼바당 좀 단좀 받아줄 안 주고 좀 당이 배류발라송 좀 단좀 받디 동당원이 들이들이 중정고 요리를 좀 맞아 보면서 송에 다시 쭉 가려라가 최대로 쭉 강행 요 말에 좀 취삽제를 배용 전부 요래 저렇게 용띠 요리게 랩티치 나고 나가 출력 델리 이데 체세세들 들이 잡아지는 거를 들이 마다바 참아 줬어 들이 저렇게 좀 노바다가면 노바다 비만이 셰셰 다 나오더 들이 노바 셰셰 와자 들이 잡간 촉박이 기다라고 차서 니들이 중대래 대라 저래 시선을 잡게 이제리 님이 봐시네 좀 다좀 받아줘 물론 잡아 좀 맞아 내가 좀 다시 봐 속좁게 제대로 나는 답이라고 그래 나가 오마한테 장이요 말이 대도 쭉 지답게 대다 냠철님 말 장님이 봐 Kijita Tony is on Yoma, Daniel Lani, say no day, you were dead of all of this, now the lean shit there of your age. Now the lean machine, or touch some Tara, there is that logical till Joba the donation getting in your way. Joba the donation your age.
And so dualistic grasping, so in the 7 verses of Tara, it mentions that, but then through dualistic grasping, then arise karmic imprints, hoarding things to be true. So this is where samsara begins. It begins with this fixation, with this perception of self and other, this duality of happiness and suffering. And actually we find that in both the Dharma and also in the worldly traditions. We find the fault of dualistic grasping. And all the faults arise from that. That is the beginning of all the faults. So we even find that in the Dharma. For example, even though we say that all phenomena are inherently empty, then also at the same time we make a lot of divisions of Buddhist, not Buddhist, within Buddhism, Sakya, Gelopa, Nyingma, Kagyu, and so forth. And by dividing further and further, afflictions increase more and more and more. And that obscures our fundamental nature, and it increases afflictions and conflict in the world. Therefore, Thich Somgen said that those who grasp at philosophical viewpoints or tenets the grasping of philosophical viewpoints originate from one's own personal mental, the ordinary mental continuum, the ordinary mind. It is because in the ordinary mind takes whatever one believes as the truth. For example, one practitioner thinks that I'm right. We always think we're right, but then the other one also thinks I'm right. And so it is that holding on. That's what we mean with holding on to tenet. It means holding on to one's own view as right, the way you see things as right. And that is what increases our thoughts of attachment and anger. And this would be like holding to one's own viewpoint as right. This is what pollutes everything, what pollutes our mind and our practice. And it is nothing else but your own mind. So it originates from within your own mind and has no other true existence aside from that. And so that is why the supplication of Tara also references they are deceived by erroneous dogma or tenets. So that is what is meant with dogma. It is this inherent belief that what I think is right. And from that, all the faults arise. So the Dharma itself doesn't have any faults. There's only benefit and good quality in the Dharma. But then when we, as the Dharma practitioners, we put the self first, and we think that I'm right, and then the other one is wrong. I'm always right, and the other one is wrong. Then this is where, right there is where all impurity begins, and all harm begins. And so then in whatever we do, we find benefit and harm. But then because this is how it starts with I'm right and they're wrong, then this is what leads to an increase in faults. And so then we have more faults than good qualities. Because at the root, we have self-clinging. I'm right. We have self-clinging. and the dualistic perception of self and other. But it's not actually in the Dharma, in the religion itself. The fault is in dualistic grasping and self-grasping. But this is really where all the conflict and strife and suffering in the world arises. So if one actually truly understands the Dharma, then what appears, even though we do see a duality, one also knows that this is just how it appears, but it all really appears just like a dream or like an illusion, and one doesn't cling to one's own beliefs. And so then that so-called tenets, or like these viewpoints, the philosophical viewpoints, they can become a support on one's path. That is, if one doesn't cling to this duality and this idea that my belief is right, and then inwardly, there is no. Within the mind, one knows there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. In terms of practice, there is no right or wrong or good. There's no good or bad in the sense. There is no better or worse. There's no better or worse practice, or there's no between emptiness and compassion, for example. It's not that one is better and the other one is worse. So if one knows how to practice, then this is how it becomes. But if one doesn't know how to practice correctly, then this is why we encounter so much conflict and suffering in the world. So.
Because the taptu gava mena taptu ben perjeme gava taptu yakutsele yore chogde ke marit o ta dor karna lüder tomna shibde gold seri shibde gold le semina ruta gold raman gold sit asoni cha 대기가 다 갔다서 그 잡는 거다 좀 탐색들 내용을 양 탐바답이 다대 대기 편우에 때에 다다다 나발에 좋은다 용기 용기로 때에 하고서 좋은게 샘을 통도 싸와 들랑서 천낭 샘들은 사지 좀 되게 다 파티 파삼만 보면서 파심진 탐들 피고 오삼이 뒤로들 레베 봐서 들이 랑가 야고지 랑가 샘는 양서 더지 파 참제리 약간 상호도 샘지 피고선 로디 거리 마도 들이 조데 랑가 샘지 담아서 거래 랑가 샘는 양서 더지 들이 나한테 정말 샘는 더를 샘을 잡아라 들이 가리 통도 그래 들이 샘는 이해 봐 샘이 이제대로 돌들이 샘는 이해 봐 기대들이 이제 남주 가서 종료봐 하고서 대리들이 니들이 종삼제 종료봐서 들이 다도 차지 고방자 토야 요리디 사지 고방토는 세를 니매봐 대 하고서 들이 챈는 남 갔다 그래 하고를 들이 집어요리 들이 제제 요마 뒤다 사제 용대 삼지 등에 매대와 챈부터 저것도 들이 사지 줄어오게 되나 이야래 들이 줄어 마시게 대답을 송요리 대일때 주룩답지 시에땅 대답을 연나 다다소소라는 게 다 내가 손도 설레요 요래 동의 방도 설레요 요래 대일은 동의지 람상 방트고 요 말이 점마 방제 방트고 요 말이 가시게서 다 나타도 자서는 다가갈 다장 잡디 좀 그리 다디 잡디 좀다 그 미노도 미노 그냥 피마도 그 말이 사제가 미는 송을 피부 탑도 와송을 때 얘가 저거 돈이라고 다 그때 광대 짜지 보면 제 감이란 게 제 사원들아 Jokiva Savona, just not Jokiona, but it's yourself, Carlosona, they are told those. Or Jorangetilla, time give it down in the human body. Take a change and never, the metal capot and the metal capo metal, not what the metal double. Deity, the tower, the Jokin, the Rami, the Tama Mizambo, Rank Punk, the Rangrans Davi, Tora Cemetery, Labianta, Child, Rami, child, Jackson, you, Mago, Ransom, Rankama Zotava, the Desert joke, ready.
So, and so within the worldly tradition, there are actually two viewpoints, two kind of major viewpoints. So the first one is that they say that the world, we have to improve the world. When we improve the world, when it develops, we improve, then that they consider that as happiness. So there has to be some kind of forward progress, and that is happiness. And in order to achieve that, and sometimes it's necessary to wage a war, and that's this kind of conflict and war is at times necessary to move things forward. So they consider this as sometimes for the greater good and necessary. And then the second viewpoint does not agree with that, and they say that now we are born in this world, and having a body, the body needs comfort and peace. So we need to have the body and mind need to basically have a peaceful life. We don't need war. We need peace, and we need freedom. And so that is the other viewpoint. And so actually all of the world's conflict comes from this division between those two viewpoints. That's the source of all the faults that manifest in various ways in the world. But it really comes down to this division. And then ultimately that comes down to the mind. And so now according to the Buddhist view, there's not much to actually think about. So essentially the Buddha taught that we just hoard an altruistic intention. We just hoard a sincere intention of just wanting to benefit others. So whether that is thinking about one's country in a larger scale, or if not, just benefiting beings. So that's what we want to have in our mind, because the Buddha essentially said that completely tame your own mind. That means we have to purify our own mind, looking inward at our own mind. And so that is essentially is to have an altruistic mind. So on the ultimate level, taming one's own mind means to realize the non-dual nature of the mind. And so this is what we realize as we progress along the path. As we cultivate an altruistic mind, one begins to understand how all the faults arise and how they all arise out of dualistic grasping. So ultimately, as a result of that, dualistic thoughts go away and one attains enlightenment. So when one realizes that the mind is non-dual, it is like space, that state is a state of great joy, great happiness, and it is beyond birth and death. So one attains endless qualities of Buddhahood, of lasting bliss. And so attaining lasting true happiness is really what most religions really speak about. But so in the Dharma, we say that so everyone wants to be happy and everyone wants to avoid suffering, but we cannot just want that and it goes away. We cannot just want to be free from suffering and let it go. It still comes. It comes because we have still not abandoned the cause, and that's what the Buddha Dharma teaches. If we do not abandon the cause, then we can also not avoid the result. So often, what happens is that when something bad happens, for example, when somebody gets sick, and then they are being told to perform a certain ritual, like recite the medicine Buddha mantra, and then they recite many of those mantras. And then when that doesn't help and they don't get better, then they say that, oh, it didn't work. But what we need to understand is that the Buddha taught all of these methods in order to benefit beings, but the most important thing that the Buddha taught is to recognize that ultimately it all comes from one's own karma. Whatever happens comes from one's own karma, from the cause. And so if one abandons non-virtue, one abandons suffering. If one creates non-virtue, one creates suffering, and if one creates virtue, one creates happiness. So virtue and non-virtue are like the seeds that lead to a certain outcome. It is just like planting the seed of a flower. You can plant the seed of a white flower, a black flower, whatever is the seed's color, the result, the flower will grow according to that seed. And so, therefore, anything, any kind of suffering that we experience is the result of our own actions. And so somebody who understands that will naturally become a good person. They will naturally, seeing that, they will abandon negativity. They will purify themselves and practice virtue. And so in that sense, without anyone imposing anything, any kind of like moral rules onto us, without needing to be right or wrong, just naturally one becomes a good and sincere person. And so this is really the tradition of the Buddha Dharma. So.
Tata Makashira Takbar Dungi Yungo or Modern Solon Dino, Ya Yigase, Dongo, Data Kali, Jumdaki, Mingo, Mantonsa, Tojubare, they don't do so day over your head. There is that course, Kari said, or Yung Jena, Zawaji Tomata, so only give me the Ombatani. So good low him, they yet in Japan with me. 강을 대략이 되어 너가 이제 제보지 방토고 요래서 데레데레 데레데레 피박하리 이제 맞도마도마도마 다다 그런 동안에 걸 기와졌어 뭐 요래 되게 와대 종종적으로 빼라 뭐 좀아서 자들 갈아들 때잖아 뒤제부터지 잡서 저가를 손을 대라는 게 갈아서 토바 just a part, the Madame Deverage, then they saved the scene and Davidson to hold give up some support, give out the longer give out Joyanna, Tata told you some Manona, the Mount Party, the middle sound of a child or eso, or Deva sound of a child or give out them the sound of a chakra, give us sound of a chakra. The heart was on the Tata, Kepazi, or Range, Dualistic Payochi, some Tata Range, the Massage, but what I'm saying, 파트때 방이 오래돼 대나게 되나 따뜻한 레벨 가래 제와 차랍데 내가 털이 속을 톱톱아 따뜻 사지고 막 톱어 대상 촉sem단 됐나 사지고 막 톱톱아래 내가 털이 좀 대화를 삼는 대화지 제가 어떻게 내가 요금 말에 샘지 돈가 상지고 사지고 막 톱고 샘지게 돈 nga 상지고 삼는 상지요 말이야 샘지게 돈나 상지고 삼는 들이다만 장장 작요래 대 제발 가래야 되는 상지에서 nga 상지고 삼는 nga 되냐면 요래 등에 탐시 자왕 아지 되는 요래 샘도 보니 nga 남도 제그래 돼 있나 누가 그 자와 참말을 뒤토로 요래 되라 고와 토만 먹으려 가 토로 요래 샘지 동사는 아요다 되는 상지가 남아 최수대 오만의 베베 홍 되나 장게 나라 피고서 오만 매용 졸라 팽게 대셈고 좀 맞지 샘지 담지를 피고 오만 매용 또 땀마다 자도 병침 보여래서 인피기 진고 때때니 족보상제 인피 셈네 통스 등의 말이 다돼 놀이죠 나디 좀들 되나 뒤속에 등에 요거 때문에 통주서 맞을 말이 사실 가서 하면 데려다 무슨 체마데라 단 샘지 담제 디람니 자자전 rolle면 로사요 말지 샘데 요리 로가를 뚫은 코그 요래 콜로 델레 대독 소와 요래 그 강그스니 로도 다다다다랑 좀 갑도 지나 대다 팽이 요래 오다 저도 거래스 대 말라레 베송마레 냐마 빠다르면 송마레 angin nyama padar ban chu nyong chi sobo te pa chi chu chen de sema shilam ren jaksi ta tu chula so jaksi ta so jeba yin beto no le jeba tong de da da jeba tong na che sema ga khala ta de chi yo le che sema na chi de khala ka ge yo ma le so de do ya ta che de ka wo le che da jo ka ko yo le chang ke ke le cha ha ko ta 들이대 다 파르도서 봐 도들이 다 페바송에 들 돌아 덱바 저 쳤들 되고 다다 지금 먹여라 들어 다다 간안 되고 뭐 다지마 망고 사오래 다 막고 그러지 남는 좀 막을 마음가를 쳐왔다 그래 때때다기 하고로 들이 좀 내리지 봐서 들이대 좀 내리지 맞대 딱 결정치 못하고 랑랑 샘 싸움아서 너들은 책 찍었는데 랑게 샘내 영선들 또 랑게 샘도 담아지 이마 탑재부터 또 담아서 동바 담아서 소리 또샘 담아서 그래 샘내들 당대의 요모만 배워래 핀체비 봐라 샘진이 피고서 로데 유마체 받지 제치 나 sabte 용도 통성 돼서 말해
And so the Buddha essentially gave us one essential instruction, a kind of a guideline, and that is do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue, completely tame your own mind. So do not commit any wrong, non-virtue. Committing wrong, there are many things, but if we just keep to the main vows, then kind of that encompasses others. So doing wrong is doing things like killing, stealing, like abusing others, mistreating others, and so forth. And so when somebody mistreats others or abuses them, harms them in some way, they might think that he can't do anything to me. I won the fight, and he wouldn't think any more of it. But then that person also carries with them the anger and the jealousy that has built up in the process, and that will kind of haunt them in a future lifetime. It will come back. And then in a future lifetime, they will encounter similar hardships. So right now, you might not be faced by any consequences, but then it will eventually come back around. For example, there are some people who always run into problems. For example, we can see patterns in people's problems. For example, some people always end up in car accidents, or almost being killed, or being abused by somebody else, and so on. So we have these patterns that of problems that we encounter, and that's this karmic propensity that is now ripening. Even if we cannot see it at the time when it's happening, it is still there, and it will eventually come around. And therefore, it's very important to be careful now. We can start with a few of the upasaka, the layperson's vows, which are mainly actually 4 main vows that the Buddha gave. That is to refrain from killing, stealing, lying, and sexual misconduct, because these lead to great suffering, and it's something that we can abandon. So we can keep a vow of not engaging in these, and then we will gain the benefit of practicing ethical discipline. So essentially what we should do, as the Buddha had taught, is to practice the 10 virtues, such as practicing generosity. And even if it's just a small act, for example, even if it is just like feeding a small little insect, like an animal, the result of that is finding a perfect abundance of food in future lifetimes. So a small act of virtue will result in perfect abundance in future lifetimes. And that's just the result of an act of generosity. So that's what the Buddha meant when he said, perfectly practice virtue. So practice those 10 virtues. And as before, even if you don't see the results of these virtues right now, right away, in the future, they will gradually unfold, because these virtues, deeds, are like the seed that will eventually become a flower. So it's the same with non-virtue. For this reason, when the Buddha said, do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue, essentially it means be heedful in whatever you do, and be peaceful, calm and subdued, and mindful in whatever you do. And so that is essentially what the Buddha and most of the masters, the lamas, are teaching, and what these masters also have probably abandoned themselves. And as a result, we will gain the benefits of that. So in the future, in a temporary sense, as a result, one attains birth in the higher realms, and such as the human being and so forth, the 3 higher realms. And then ultimately, if one also cultivates bodhicitta, one attains the state of enlightenment. But even if one does not cultivate bodhicitta, if one does good, at least temporarily, one will attain some happiness within samsara. Rather, what we should think is that I want to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. So there's a difference in how we think about enlightenment. If we just think that I want to attain enlightenment, you actually will not attain enlightenment, because you are just thinking, I want to attain enlightenment. So as long as there's this I that wants to attain anything, there still is this self, this pride of me that's still there. This ignorance is still there. And therefore, we will not attain enlightenment, and that's why since beginning last time we are still here, because this ignorance is still present in our mind. So instead, the Buddha's instruction is to think that whatever I do it for the sake of others. So may they attain enlightenment, so that all sentient beings attain happiness and attain enlightenment. For example, if you just recite a single Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, you don't think that may this benefit me in some way, but you think that may this benefit all sentient beings. Then it becomes really a very powerful. So what really makes the practice that powerful is the altruistic intention. As we mentioned, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind in the 37 practices. And these are the unmistaken, trustworthy words of the Buddha himself. And this is the way everything goes. All suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Everyone has nowhere else to go, but either this or that way, depending on one's mind. Because as long as there is a mind, beings have a mind, and because they have a mind, they will continue to experience. And as long as they have this intention, they will continue to experience wandering in samsara and feeling various experiences of happiness and suffering. So what is important for us is to create the right causes right now. Milarepa said to his disciple Bardapum, he said, "You faithful girl, that this life is short and the path ahead is long. Have you prepared provisions for the long path ahead in future lives?" What he meant is that practicing generosity now prepares the food, the provisions for the next life. So even if we can't see the results right now, by doing good things now, we are preparing for abundance in future lifetimes. And that is why we practice the 6 paramitas. When we engage in non-virtuous actions, whatever we cast out there will fall back upon us. It will come around and come back to us. Even if it doesn't harm us now, it is a seed for the future. It is like the clouds in the sky, and eventually the rain will fall later from those clouds. We have to purify our own mind, and so really the Buddha's teachings can be summarized into this one line: perfectly tame your own mind, or purify your own mind. Then that will be to your and others' greatest advantage. So purifying the mind is our main focus. Other people, ordinary people, they clean their clothes and their faces, but we mainly focus on cleaning the mind, cleaning it of self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. And in order to clean the mind, purify the mind, we mainly need an altruistic wish to benefit others, and that wish should be present uninterruptedly. And in this way, our self-clinging, our selfish mind will gradually decrease. That's all?
Oh, 들까지 제목 찍셔야 요리다 강의들은 들리다다 플라시마도 싸치모래 오 거기서 타고 시작하면 대대 말이 로아를 또 냠들 로요래 저것이마를 로아를 또 냠들 로요래 주거를 놓고 탑주고 나와 가라 람지게 요래 지마 제바 요래 저것이마는 로아 몇 냠들 로요래 대나 지네즈데 접티 로마니 싸치치 저거 요래 참에 싸치와 가래리 삼인지도 싸치오래 오미 참아 제가 참아 약합 참아랬더니 제가 알고 삼지 치보대 삼지도 싸치오래 samti Sulando, oh, dark, me jilla, samti Chiboja, Timji, Tamti, Pimba, they are Dumaduna, that meti, generated, poison generated, more leka chemistry, that was something leka chemistry, the Egyptian Romarisa, don't samti, the generated the Egyptian Romarisa, the samti, the Salava Demon. Say Zola in the Tala, Mamboji, or Mamboji, the reason not on Mare, no long same tagore, or same somebody, pony jake in the generator, money jake in the Egyptian Romares, this is a triple song of us, say, was of course so in there. The draw 17 something, Yore, Bill Koto, Nayam the Yore, Koto. Good after so for the time that you go your midday to go my for the teacher sell you my no matter not talk with the Sayon, they got to Karata, young part of Timmy Koto, then I get the drone on the data suggested by Yore, suggested by the she comes to Tibo day at the Rimari, 17 on Drogo Yore, data of Conan on 40 J. Money J. Romare, this is what the same by your the typical dinner, Zotriboka, Theatriboka, Ramada, Taka the data, genetic Gusari, Musuko joke to Yore, they are running like a Toyore, Pedine, they rugged tape out of the China, then I Musuko young to worry. They caress in it. Chimba, Seva, Nevasam Yore, Chimba, Shirap, Chimboke, 17 times they don't necessarily half what of Yore. Chiba, Tiva 17 times Ama Nagi, Tiva the Martipupanagi, Tiva Chibo Yore, Niba the Kare, Koto Muni Japsuna, does the part of the Japsu to Nivati Yore Kare. Did Nivata Kare, twist of the Saji Tamtik, Sunam de Poposagari, this will I'm telling Koto Wajata Yore. I saw the Dongate, Dandi Dongate, Nay, ne Samagata, Dunga Samagata, Dandi, the Minka, Jimping Law, they could Jimping Law to Pingy or oh, Charo Popo, your teacher tower Lotera, the energy, like a penny, like a Chichio or yeah, the Bati Carre Hakosa, Joseph Bio Hakona, the Ningunake was also so atana, the step part of Ramiliore, Rag same with Nangatini, Genetic Carre, oh, somebody got the chi. You need to go to Holler Yoris. Sedan la di ota yo marde. Oh, tante Yoris. La dread. Dream, dream, simply, dream dirty, dream simply, rock one dream matter. Simply the double China, double surgeon, didn't I'm going to pump up large. That they are so what you live at him. That's in dread. You call it so, Tado Yori, dream Yori, the young surgeon, dread. Long day, long one day, bass on day, or they should have not a day. Large, but oh, 17 of me, Torum and the Yachung was what is it, large as the shake. They are calling it all. Long around the same and not land your head. Something that large, shut the large. Oh, yeah. Slow now, port of the teenage race. For Nijay, more Nijay in Mares. Oh, they register some of them. 3 youngest from the Jenny Town, my child. There was a hug at the young Nijabakan. They did the chalk of the so young Ella on my just this on. Now a lot of one house over. Don't they? The half wasn't in Jertovi or they don't Jertovi. They told you, they are you, Tama. They don't come to
So, so there's one important thing that I still want to mention, and so that is, so we people say that the deities are so precious, and but they're not always here. Because they live in those pure lands. But actually, that's not true. They actually are in the 6 realms of samsara. They are throughout the 6 realms of samsara. They're always with us. The Nirmanakayas in particular are among us in our form. And then the Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya, they are actually naturally ever present as they're pervading space. And then the Nirmanakayas, they actually appear in the various forms, like they are born as a human being, they look like us. That's the Nirmanakayas. And so of the different deities, often Chenrezig and Tara are considered most precious. And that is because what we consider precious is love and compassion. And so that is really what I say, what everyone, and no matter where in the world, considers as most important. And so whoever has that, actually, whoever has love and compassion can said to be an emanation of Chenrezig and Tara. So if a person has love and a true wish to benefit others, if that person is male, then he is Chenrezig. And if the person is female, then she really is Tara. So anyone who works for the benefit of others with love for others is really Chenrezig or Tara. And so when we think of the deity, we often we focus on the outer form, the visualization, the deity with many hands and heads and so on. But actually there is no need to think of the deities just in this way, because mainly we need to look at the essence of the deity. And the essence of the deity is not in the outer appearance, but in the mind. And so if there's compassion in the mind, then any male form is Chenrezig. And if it's in a female, then she's Tara. But they appear just like us, as people living in this world in samsara. And they also appear in other realms, for example, among the animals. For example, they live within the ants, like in an ant colony as an insect. Actually, they are also living together with me in the retreat cabin. But they cannot always stay. They don't always stay inside the shrine. But then they have kind of their system that when the food comes, then they have this kind of leader that they all come and they get it and then they go. Now there is these leaders among them, and they can also said to be emanations of a Buddha. So the Buddha doesn't just stay in one certain place, but is actually together with beings in their forms. And any male form with compassion in their mind is Chenrezig, and any female form with compassion in their mind is Tara. So it's really about the intention in the mind. So this is how also I personally see it. And then for the Nirmanakaya, there's different kinds of Nirmanakaya. There is the Nirmanakayas that take birth, and then there is the created, the manufactured Nirmanakayas, for example, in the form of tankas or statues. But they also perform Nirmanakaya activities. For example, I've had experiences where the deity would reach out from the tanka and then touch my head. So they're still there. And one experiences that if one has great faith in them. And so why can we experience that? It is because the deity possesses the qualities of love, wisdom, and power. And so with wisdom, the omniscient wisdom knows the state of all sentient beings. It sees all of their happiness and suffering. And with their love, they regard all beings like a mother sees her only child. And with power, they have the power to protect beings if they supplicate them and take refuge in them. And they protect them in this life, in future lives, and in the bardo. And so it is the reason why they have the power to protect us is because they are also supported by all the accumulated merit of all the Buddhas of the three times. They are one with all that merit of all the Buddhas of the three times. And so our suffering, the root of all of our suffering and sickness is self-grasping. And the medicine for that is that mind that the Buddhas have, the mind of altruism. And when they come and help us, it is just like, for example, applying heat onto a pile of ice, onto a pile of ice blocks. And that is through the power of bodhicitta. So if you understand this, you know that you're always inseparable from the three jewels in this life, future lives, and in the bardo. And that is if you seek refuge and you supplicate them with faith, and if you sustain love in your heart, then you really are Chandresik. It's like Chandresik is in your belly, is within you, within you. But then when anger arises, then he is temporarily not there, and instead there is a demon there. So we speak about gods and demons, but what demon really means is it is just a corrupt intention, a corrupt way of thinking, a momentary corrupt way of thinking. So there is this thought that comes that just wishes others to be unsuccessful, or it wishes something negative happening to them. And we have a lot of this in this world. It happens because of jealousy and rivalry and competitiveness. And so when that thought arises, that kind of delights in the downfall of others, that's the demon. It's a corrupt recollection, a corrupt temporary thought. And what we call a god or a deity is when the mind that wants to benefit all sentient beings arises again. So the mind that wants to come and take all these ice blocks and melt them and help them all. So actually, both the demon and the god are both present. They can both be present within one mind. Whenever love and wisdom arises, that is the deity. And that when it arises in a male person, that male person then really is Chandresik. And if it arises in a female, then she really is Tara. So you should think about it in just this way. And then your mind will become pure and not seeing it in this way. And so now when I'm saying these things, it's not just me saying this, it's also how it is explained in the tantric teachings. In the sadhanas, for example, it says that appearances are the deity and sounds are the deity's mantra. So if you understand all of this in this way, then this is how your perception actually becomes. So I love you all, and let's stop here for now. That's all.
Tritato, Jojopona Nagas, and they, the Tama Soto, Zoto, Tretamna, the Hajak Pin Chimori, Dina, do the Samla Tantan, Ram Yigitri, Congaton, the Ha, Connie, Peter Tangabjan and Nikitahin, the Martazokon, Titicatri Din Karnapara, Pastor Kabandere, and Nalintani, the Hajak Pin Chimor, Temner Zero, Sosoki. So now, sir, one of the them the run get Johnny Gina Jena, the Nimba, certain them to trade and that area and that area Yaga Yori, the Ping Chimbori, they can go to show it. Don't do with them.
And one more thing I wanted to mention is there's this small Bodhicharya Vatara Shantideva little booklet that I made. And I made it because I wanted to give it to everyone, because the benefit of this prayer is so great. If you read it and think about its meaning and really understand the meaning, the benefit is really incredible. There's a story about how when Shantideva gave this teaching sitting on a throne before Nalanda, he, together with the throne, took off in front of 500 great banditas. He flew off into space and disappeared there. And this really shows the magnificence and benefits of this prayer. And so if you also want to accumulate more merit, you can hold on to it yourself and recite it, and also print it and pass it on to others. And so this is really a very valuable thing to have. It is more precious than receiving a big chunk of gold.
The checking about your salt, tank, job song. The day, Ranke, Zina, Jotor, Tamara, about the Gypsy Romukaba, Rangapia, your head, 3 days, the Tamara, the song, to Atijake, song, Japaji Joba song, the thing like Tamara, the Niba, the Gypsy Romukaba, prayer yours. The party and Raga, Chuba, the Raga, the Chuba prayer, the Tia Javio, the Tamate, the Sinano,
and then Tara. So I personally seek refuge in Tara, and Tara had already saved my life 8 times in this life. And so as a gift to all of you, I also want to give you a picture, an image of Tara. And it contains Atisha's praise to Tara, called the Tara, praise to Tara who protects from the 8 fears. So I would like to offer you this picture, and this particular form. I've also made many offerings to myself, and also I have I've put like a fingerprint on there. So I'm offering that to you.
So we want to thank our Ultimate Mother for his inconceivable wisdom and compassion bestowing upon us. And we pray for your long life and have eternal gratitude. Please accept this offering on behalf of us all. So now Rinpoche will leave, and then Elizabeth has a few announcements, and then we'll all gather outside for the group photo with Rinpoche. Thank you.